This house is ours now. Those were the words that came out of Mariana's mouth as I, still trembling and with shaky legs, crossed the threshold of my own house. My own house, the same one I had built brick by brick, sweat by sweat, during 32 years of non-stop work. I could still smell the hospital clinging to my skin, the odor of disinfectant mixed with the fear that had accompanied me during those 14 days of hospitalization. My heart had stopped for a few seconds on the operating table. The doctors told me later, as if it were just any technical detail, but I knew I had crossed an invisible door between life and death. And now, returning home, hoping to find the comfort of my home, the embrace of my son, the gratitude for my having survived, I found only those cold eyes of Mariana staring at me as if I were an intruder, an invader in my own story. The shock paralyzed me there in the hallway. Behind her, my son Raphael looked away, unable to face me, his shoulders hunched, his posture submissive before that woman, my boy, whom I had cradled in my arms, who had cried clinging to my skirts when his father abandoned us, was now cowering cowardly while his wife claimed what was not hers. The suitcases I hadn't packed were piled up next to the door, my clothes, my books, the photographs of my mother, all thrown unceremoniously inside 3 battered suitcases, as if my entire existence could be summed up and discarded in that way. Mariana, what are you saying? My voice came out weak, almost a whisper. I was still recovering, my body ached, my head was spinning, the scar on my chest throbbed under the bandage, reminding me every second that I had fought for my life. And for what? To come back and be kicked out of my own house. You heard very well, Mrs. Helena. She pronounced my name with disdain, as if it were something rotten in her mouth. Raphael and I talked a lot while you were in the hospital. We came to the conclusion that it no longer makes sense for you to live here. You are old, sick, you will need care. And we want privacy, space to build our family without interference. Interference. That word echoed in my mind, like a gunshot. I, who had completely erased myself in the last 3 years since they got married. I, who spent the whole day locked in my room so as not to bother when they were home. I, who cooked, cleaned, washed, ironed, kept that house running like clockwork while working part-time in sewing to help with expenses. Was that interference? I looked at Raphael, silently begging him to say something, anything, to defend me, to remember who I was, what I represented. But my son remained silent, his eyes fixed on the floor, like a cowardly boy who had betrayed his own mother. It's strange how our mind works in moments of absolute shock. While I was there, paralyzed, watching my life fall apart, I began to remember everything, every sacrifice, every choice that brought me to that moment of humiliation. I was 23 years old when Raphael was born. His father, Julian, was a handsome, seductive man, full of promises that never materialized. We worked together in a textile factory, me in sewing, him in maintenance. He promised that we would build a life together, that he would give me the world. During the pregnancy, his promises multiplied. But when Raphael was only 6 months old, Julian simply disappeared. There was no fight, no explanation. He went to work on a Friday and never came back. I learned later, from a cousin of his, that he had run away with a waitress to another city. He left me with a child, debts and unpaid rent. I remember the feeling of panic at that time. I had no family. My parents had died in a bus accident when I was 18. I had no siblings, no support network. It was just me and my baby against the world. I cried for an entire night, with Raphael crying along in my arms, as if he could feel my despair. But when the sun rose the next day, I wiped away my tears and made a decision. I would be strong enough for both of us. I started working overtime at the factory, sewing until my hands went numb. At night, after Raphael fell asleep, I would take sewing jobs to do at home, repairs, alterations, party dresses. I slept 4 hours a night, sometimes less. Those were years like that, in a brutal routine that destroyed my health, but ensured that my son had everything he needed. Raphael never went hungry, never went without clothes, never lacked school supplies. I made sure of that, even if it meant that I myself wore the same 3 battered blouses for years, even if it meant skipping meals, even if it meant working sick, exhausted, broken. When Raphael was 10, I managed to save enough money to make a down payment on a plot of land in an area further from the city. It was a humble place, surrounded by other hard-working families like mine, but it was ours. On weekends, I taught myself how to lay bricks, mix cement and build walls. Neighbors occasionally helped me, but most of the construction was done by my own hands. Raphael helped me as much as he could, carrying buckets of water, holding tools, keeping me company. It was 3 years of construction, 3 years sweating under the sun, scraping my knees, using my hands. But when we finally moved into that house, simple and small but ours, I cried with joy. No one could take us out of there. It was our patrimony, our achievement, our castle. While the house was going up, I worked my fingers to the bone so that Raphael could study. I paid for English courses, computer courses, materials for school projects. I encouraged his every dream. When he was accepted into public university for engineering, it was the happiest day of my life. My son, the first in the family to enter a university, everything I had sacrificed was worth it. During the 5 years of college, I continued to support everything alone. Raphael didn't need to work. I wanted him to concentrate on his studies. I paid for transportation, food, books, materials. When he graduated, I cried again seeing him in a gown, diploma in hand, eyes shining with the future. He hugged me that day and whispered, "Thank you for everything, Mom. I'm going to give you a better life now." And for a while, it was good. Raphael got a job at a large company, started earning well. He helped at home. We talked. We laughed together. We were a team, as we always were. He renovated the house, changed the flooring, painted the walls, bought new furniture. I continued working in sewing, because it was my craft, my identity, but life was lighter. Then Mariana appeared. They met at a company event. She was an administrative assistant, came from a family with a little more resources than us. From the beginning, I noticed something in her that made me uncomfortable, a hardness in her eyes, a way of evaluating me as if I were inferior. But Raphael was in love, radiant, and I didn't want to be the problematic mother-in-law who interferes with her son's happiness. When they announced their engagement after 6 months of dating, I hugged Mariana and said, "Welcome to the family." The wedding was beautiful, simple but beautiful. I paid half the expenses. I insisted on contributing, even though they earned more than me. He was my only son. I wanted him to have a worthy wedding. When they returned from their honeymoon, the inevitable conversation about housing came up. They wanted to rent an apartment, but the price of rentals in the city was absurd. That's when I suggested, naively, "Why don't you live here at home for a while? The house is big, it has 3 bedrooms, you save money, and then buy something of your own." Mariana accepted with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Raphael seemed relieved. He could save on rent and invest in his career. I thought I was doing the right thing, that I was helping. In the first months, I tried to create harmony. I gave them the largest room, the most airy, with a private bathroom. I stayed with the smallest. I cooked the dishes that Mariana liked, kept the house spotless, respected their privacy. But nothing I did was enough. Mariana started with subtle criticisms. The food was too salty. The house wasn't clean, the way she wanted it. I made noise in the morning when I went to work. Then the criticisms became more direct, more cruel. She complained to Raphael constantly, and I heard through the thin walls, "Your mother is intrusive. Your mother is old-fashioned. Your mother doesn't understand that we have our own life." Raphael started to change. Little by little, almost imperceptibly, he was distancing himself from me. He stopped talking to me at breakfast. He stopped asking about my day. When I tried to bring up a subject, he answered in monosyllables, his eyes always turning to Mariana, as if asking for approval or fearing reprisal. My son was becoming a stranger inside my own house. I began to withdraw. I spent most of my time in my room, sewing, reading, existing silently, so as not to bother. I left in the morning to work, and returned at night, buying my own food so as not to consume what was theirs. The house I had built with my own hands, brick by brick, was turning into a prison. 6 months ago, I started to feel pain in my chest, shortness of breath, extreme fatigue. I ignored it for weeks. I didn't have time to get sick. I didn't want to be a burden. I didn't want to hear Mariana complain that I was being dramatic. Until one day I fainted on the street, tending of the work. I woke up in the hospital, surrounded by doctors who were talking about a serious heart problem, the need for urgent surgery, risk of death. I was terrified, not of death itself, but of the idea of dying and leaving Raphael alone with that woman. The surgery was scheduled for the following week. When I told Raphael, he seemed scared, worried. For a moment I saw my son again in his eyes. He said he would be there, that he would take care of everything. Mariana just nodded, without expressing any emotion. On the day of the surgery, I waited for Raphael at the hospital entrance. He had promised that he would take me, that he would stay with me. I waited an hour, 2 hours. I called several times, with no answer. Finally, I received a message from him. Sorry, Mom. An important meeting came up at work. Mariana can't go either. Take a taxi, and I'll reimburse you later. I went to the hospital alone for a high-risk heart surgery. I cried in the taxi the whole time, not out of fear of death, but out of the absolute loneliness of realizing that I had no one. The surgery lasted 6 hours. I woke up in the ICU, alone, without a single visit. In the following days, while I was recovering in the hospital room, Raphael visited twice, quick, uncomfortable visits, where he could barely look me in the eyes. Mariana didn't show up once. The nurses looked at me with pity, seeing an elderly woman with no family, no flowers, no affection. I lied to them, saying that my son was very busy, but loved me very much. I don't know if they believed me. If you are following this story, and it has touched your heart, please consider subscribing to continue receiving stories like this, stories of overcoming, of strength, of women who did not let themselves be broken by life's adversities. Your presence here means a lot. During those 14 days of hospitalization, lying in that hospital bed, I had plenty of time to think, to reflect on the choices I had made, on the son I had raised, on the woman I had become, or failed to become. I realized that in my obsession with being a good mother, with giving everything to Raphael, I had forgotten to teach him the most important thing: gratitude, empathy, respect. Or maybe I had taught him, and he simply chose to ignore it when convenient. And now, there I was, back in that house that was mine by right, being kicked out like a beggar. The deeds are in my name, I managed to say, my voice gaining a little more firmness despite the trembling. This house is mine. I built it. You can't kick me out. Mariana gave a venomous smile. It's true, the house is still in your name, but you will transfer it to Raphael. It's fair, isn't it? After all, you're not going to live forever, and this house will be his one day anyway. Why not anticipate it? Besides, you're sick, you'll need expensive medical care. We'll help with that, but in exchange, you transfer the house. It's a fair deal. Fair, that word again. None of this was fair, nothing. And if I refuse, I asked, already knowing the answer but needing to hear it, then you'll have to fend for yourself. With your health, with your medicine, with everything. Raphael won't help you anymore. You are alone, Dona Helena, completely alone, so you better accept our generosity and transfer the house willingly. It was Raphael who finally spoke, in a low, almost inaudible voice. Mom, it's better this way. You need care. You need a smaller place, easier to maintain. I'll rent a small room for you, in a good location. It'll be better. A small room. My son was offering me a small room while he kept the 3-bedroom house that I had built with my own hands. The house where I had raised him, where I had shed my sweat and tears, where each brick was a reminder of a sacrifice I had made for love. Something broke inside me, at that moment. It wasn't anger, it wasn't sadness, it was absolute clarity. I looked at Raphael, and no longer saw my son. I saw a weak, manipulated man, who had chosen a cold, calculating woman, in place of the mother who had given her life for him. I saw a man who didn't deserve the tears I was shedding inside. No, I said, and my voice came out firm, clear, definitive. I'm not going to transfer the house. I'm not going to sign anything, and you are the ones who are leaving. Mariana laughed, a shrill, unpleasant laugh. You don't understand the situation, old woman. We're not leaving. You're leaving, and if you try to resist, it will be even more humiliating for you. Get out of my house now, I said, taking a step forward, despite the pain that ran through my body. Get out before I call the police. Raphael is my son. He has the right to be here. Mariana retorted, and I am his wife. You can't kick us out. Yes, I can. This house is in my name. I have the deeds. You are here as guests, and I am rescinding this invitation. Get out of my house. My voice echoed through the walls. Raphael flinched. For a moment, I saw fear in Mariana's eyes. She didn't expect me to react, didn't expect me to have the strength to stand up for myself. Raphael, talk to your mother, she ordered, turning to him. But Raphael was paralyzed, torn, finally confronted with the reality of what he was doing. Mom, he started, but didn't know how to continue. You have 2 days to get out, I said, with a calm I didn't know I possessed. 2 days to pack your things and find another place. If you don't leave, I will seek my rights legally. I grabbed my suitcases, ignoring the pain that tore through my chest, and dragged them back inside the house. I locked myself in my room, my heart racing, my hands shaking. I sat on the bed and finally let the tears fall. But they weren't tears of weakness, they were tears of liberation. During the next 2 days, I stayed locked in my room. I heard nervous whispers outside, muffled arguments. Mariana tried to force the conversation several times, but I didn't open the door. On the second day, I heard the sound of suitcases being dragged, doors slamming, the car leaving. When I finally left the room, the house was empty. They had taken the furniture they had bought, some things from the kitchen, but the house was there. My house, still standing, still mine. It was only then that I realized something. I needed to protect myself legally. The next morning, still weak but determined, I went to a notary and made a will. The house would be donated to a charity that helps single mothers when I died. Raphael wouldn't see a penny. I kept a copy of the will and sent another to a trusted lawyer, with clear instructions. The days turned into weeks. Raphael tried to call a few times, but I didn't answer. Mariana sent threatening messages that I ignored. They had shown who they really were, and I had nothing more to say to them. It was during this period that something unexpected happened. My neighbor, Dona Teresa, appeared at my door with a lunchbox. I heard you're alone, she said, with that simple and direct way. Nobody should be alone. Dona Teresa became my daily company. Through her, I met other women in the neighborhood, all with their own stories of struggle and overcoming. We formed an informal support group. We met for coffee, shared meals, talked about life. For the first time in years, I didn't feel alone. It was through these women that I discovered something that would change everything. One of them, Dona Carmen, worked at the company where Raphael was employed. In one of our coffees, she mentioned casually, "That boy who lives with you, Raphael, he's in trouble at work. I heard he took out a big loan from loan sharks to support a lifestyle that his salary doesn't pay for. His wife spends a lot, demands a lot. He's desperate." Everything made sense. It wasn't about privacy or space. It was about money. Mariana wanted the house to sell, to pay the debts she herself had created with her unbridled consumerism. Raphael, weak and manipulated, had agreed to the plan to kick me out, because he was in deep trouble. 3 months after my failed expulsion, Raphael appeared at the door. He was thinner, with deep dark circles under his eyes, crumpled clothes. He seemed to have aged 10 years. "Mom," he said, his voice breaking, "I need to talk to you." I let him in, but didn't offer coffee, didn't offer comfort. I sat down and waited. "I messed everything up," he began, the words coming out in sobs. "Mariana, she left me. She ran away with another man, took everything we had of value. I'm full of debts. The company found out about the loan from the loan shark and fired me. I'm going to lose everything." He looked at me with those eyes that I knew so well, the same childish eyes that melted my heart. "Mom, forgive me. I was an idiot. I treated you badly. I betrayed you. But you're my mother. You have to forgive me. You have to help me." I was silent for a long moment. Part of me, that part that had spent 23 years being a mother above all else, wanted to hug him, comfort him, solve his problems. But a stronger, wiser part, the part that had been forged in those days of lonely hospital and that humiliation at the door of my own house, knew what needed to be done. "Raphael," I said calmly, "you are my son, and always will be. But love doesn't mean being a doormat. Love doesn't mean accepting disrespect and abuse. You made choices. You chose a woman you barely knew over the mother who raised you alone. You chose to try to kick me out of my house, steal the only asset I had. You chose to leave me alone, in a life-or-death surgery, and now you want me to save you from the consequences of your choices. Mom, please," he pleaded. I love you, Raphael, but I'm not going to save you this time. You need to learn. You need to grow. You need to understand the value of things and people. I've spent my whole life protecting you from the consequences, giving you everything, and the result is a man who doesn't know how to value what he has, who doesn't know how to defend himself, who has no backbone. You're going to leave me on the street? He asked, incredulously. No, I'm going to give you a chance to rebuild yourself the right way. I know a boarding house here in the neighborhood, a simple and cheap little room. I'll pay 3 months' rent for you. After that, you're on your own. I'll refer you to some jobs, even if they're humble. But you're going to have to work hard. You're going to have to sweat. You're going to have to feel in your skin what it's like to rebuild a life from scratch, like I did when your father abandoned me with a baby in my arms. Raphael cried, but this time they weren't tears of manipulation. They were tears of someone who was finally understanding the depth of what he had done. In the following months, I kept my word. I paid for the little room. I got him some cleaning and delivery jobs. Raphael complained at first. He thought it was beneath him, humiliating for a trained engineer. But hunger and need are severe teachers. He started working, fighting, understanding the value of every penny. I saw him occasionally, in brief and formal conversations. There was no more intimacy between us, but there was something new, respect. Raphael was learning, slowly, painfully, what it meant to be responsible for his own choices. As for me, my life took an unexpected turn. The women's group in the neighborhood grew. We started having weekly meetings, then sewing workshops, then a small cooperative business, where we sold clothes that we produced together. My house, which had been a place of loneliness and humiliation, became a space for meeting, for laughter, for mutual support. I had new heart exams. The doctors were surprised. My health had improved significantly. What have you been doing? They asked. Stress is terrible for the heart, and you seem much lighter. It was true. Taking the weight of carrying an ungrateful son, of living in a house where I wasn't welcome, had freed me in a way that I didn't expect. A year after that terrible scene at the door, Raphael appeared again. But it was a different Raphael, thinner, but healthier. Dark circles under his eyes, but cleaner eyes. Simple clothes, but clean and well-ironed. Mom, he said, I didn't come to ask for anything. I came to thank you. We sat in the small garden that I had started to cultivate. He told me about the last year, the hard work, the humiliations, the difficulties. He told how he had finally gotten an administrative job at a smaller company, with a modest but honest salary. He told how he had started therapy, to understand the patterns of behavior that led him to make the choices he made. I was a coward, he admitted. I let Mariana manipulate me because it was easier than having my own opinion. I chose the easy way to blame you, to take what was yours, because I thought I deserved it. But I didn't deserve anything, Mom. I didn't value anything. And now, I asked. Now I understand. I understand what you went through to raise me. I understand the sacrifice. I understand that love isn't just giving. It's also teaching. It's also letting the other person face the consequences. You gave me the greatest gift by not saving me this time. You gave me the chance to become a real man. We cried together in that garden, but they were different tears. Tears of healing, of new beginnings, of a relationship that was being rebuilt on more solid and true foundations. Raphael didn't come back to live with me. He continued in his boarding house, building his life independently, but he started visiting me regularly. Real visits, where we talked, shared meals, laughed together. He started participating in the sewing workshops, helping with the administrative part of the cooperative business. Slowly, carefully, we were rebuilding our relationship, no longer as a sacrificed mother and dependent son, but as two adults who chose to be in each other's lives. Today, when I look back, I see that terrible day at the door as a watershed. It could have been my end, the moment when I surrendered, gave up, let them take everything from me. But I chose to react. I chose to have a voice. I chose to value myself. I learned that motherly love is important, but self-love is essential. I learned that sacrifice has limits, and that teaching children to be grateful and responsible is as important as feeding and clothing them. I learned that it's never too late to start over, to find your tribe, to build a life that has meaning. My house is still here, firm and strong as it always was, but now it's more than bricks and cement. Here's the direct translation of Block 6 of 6. Mento. It is a symbol of resistance,
of dignity, of a woman who refused to be discarded. The walls that I built with my own hands now echo with the laughter of friends, with deep conversations, with the sound of sewing machines creating the future. And Raphael, my son, is learning to build his own walls, literally and figuratively. He is learning that worth is not in how much you have, but in how much you are able to get up when you fall. He is learning that family is not about obligatory blood, it is about chosen respect. If there is one lesson I want to leave, it is this: never accept being treated as less than you are. No matter who the person is, son, spouse, friend, no one has the right to humiliate you, to discard you, to take what is rightfully yours. And when you find yourself in this situation, take a deep breath, find your inner strength, and say no. Even if your voice trembles, even if your heart races, even if the world seems to fall apart, say no. Because in the end, now, here's the culturally adapted version for an English-speaking audience. Mento. It's a symbol of resilience, of dignity, of a woman who refused to be thrown away. The walls I built with my own two hands now echo with the laughter of friends, with heartfelt conversations, with the hum of sewing machines creating a future. And Michael, my son, is learning to build his own walls, literally and figuratively. He's learning that worth isn't about how much you own, but about how well you bounce back when life knocks you down. He's learning that family isn't just about blood, it's about choosing to respect each other. If there's one thing I want to pass on, it's this: never let anyone treat you like you're worthless. It doesn't matter who they are, son, spouse, friend, no one has the right to belittle you, to treat you like trash, to take what's rightfully yours. And when you find yourself in that position, take a deep breath, find your inner strength, and say no. Even if your voice shakes, even if your heart pounds, even if the world feels like it's crumbling, say no. Because in the end,